couldn't get over the alcohol. After work, I would buy beers, a 6-pack, 12-pack a night. And this was every day for 15 years. I was slowly killing myself. My eyes were like sparkling yellow. I would get bruises on my legs, on my arms. So I kept telling God, I can't do this anymore. I screamed and yelled at him, and I told him, if you don't do this for me, then who's gonna do it for me? Because I put all my trust in you and you're not responding. The next morning, I continued to drink. Around noon, I felt a pain so terrible that I had to tell my wife to take me to the hospital. I was in a coma for about a couple weeks where I couldn't wake up. In my coma, I was tied up to a bed. There was demons all around and I was getting tortured. And so I finally said, God, please, Jesus, please help me. I looked up and I saw Jesus go head to head with the devil like this. And I saw the devil push Jesus like a little bit. At that moment, I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna stay in this black hole and I'm gonna be here forever getting tortured.
Welcome to God's Voice Today podcast. I'm Vladimir Proknevsky, and today's guest, Louis, has an incredible story that I can't wait to share. After 15 years of struggling with alcohol and drinking daily, his body finally gave out and he fell into a coma. And while in this coma, he had a near-death experience where the devil and Jesus were fighting over his life. It's a story you don't want to miss, so let's get into it. Louis, welcome to the show. So excited to have you on. Before we talk about your supernatural encounter, let's back it up, man. Paint the picture for everyone listening. What your life was like leading up to that experience.
Pretty much, I'm a regular guy. I'm 30. I was 36 at the time. I'm from New York. Like growing up, I was always surrounded by a lot of people that were influencing drugs, alcohol around me. So I kind of like held on to that. And when my parents separated, that's when I like at 14, 15 years old, started to drink. That's when the invitation to alcohol and drugs got into my life. But as I got older, it stuck with me. And then the more I got older, the more problems I got into, the more fighting I got into, the more, just like, regular stuff that people run into in life. But alcohol was like a big factor in my life. I felt like I couldn't live without it. I felt like every time I had a problem, every time I had a fight, anytime I had got arrested, I always ran to alcohol. So, but alcohol can get a hold on you if you let it. And it's definitely an addictive thing. It definitely played a major part of my life. Definitely in my relationships with my girlfriends in the past, my daughter. I'm now married, found love again, and still I couldn't get over the alcohol. It was an everyday thing. After work, I would, buy beers, a 6-pack, 12-pack a night. And this was every day for 15 years. 15 years of my life. 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So, but I had my warnings. My mother always told me, you need to slow down. You need to slow down. You always think that you're young and that you still have time to quit. And my grandfather was a raging alcoholic. He used to drink his own cologne. When I was younger, I remember him drinking cologne. I remember him running to the bathroom, drinking rubbing alcohol, drinking collection of alcohol bottles that belonged to my uncle. So there's a history back there, When he passed away, he didn't have any liver problems. I'm the first one in my family to run across that. So let me get just straight into it. So in 2024 of last year, I kept telling myself I was gonna quit. And I would go to work, on my way to work, driving. I would just pray to God, just, God, please help me get over this alcoholism. I can't take it no more. It's ruining my life. I could see it in my eyes. My eyes were like sparkling yellow. I can see it. I felt like my life was just I was slowly killing myself when I could see it. I would get bruises on my legs, on my arms. In the shower, I would see these bruises on my stomach, anywhere. So I just knew that something was wrong. And I had all the signs. One time I was on vacation on a cruise with my wife, and I used the bathroom and I saw blood come out. So it's not like the signs weren't there. The signs were there. And I just kept it a secret from my wife for so long. And I knew that slowly I was deteriorating, that my liver was deteriorating. So I kept telling God, I put this in your hands, and, I can't do this anymore. I prayed to God, and I screamed and yelled at him, and I told him, if you don't do this for me, then who's going to do it for me? Because I put all my trust in you, and you're not responding. He wasn't there. So I just lost hope. And New Year's Eve of 2024, I said that was going to be my last day drinking. I had promised myself and my wife that I was going to stop drinking. So I did drink that night of New Year's. I stayed home. I drank. The next morning, I continued to drink. I opened the refrigerator. I grabbed myself 2 beers and I started to drink. Around noon, I felt a pain that I couldn't resist anymore. It's a pain that makes any grown man cry. And I felt a pain so terrible that I had to tell my wife to take me to the hospital. And when we got to the hospital, I think she didn't take me seriously because she seen me go through so much stuff. I've broken my leg. I've gotten into fights, and I've been through so much. My wife thinks I'm like Hercules. So she didn't believe me, but they ran the test. The hospital ran the test, and I was in Suffolk Hospital in Long Island in New York, and they had told me I had a gallbladder issue. They told me that my gallbladder was no good and that it was clogged and it was affecting my liver and that it would have to be removed. So I had said, fine, let's do it, because I couldn't take the pain anymore. They asked me if I can give a urine sample. I remember giving a urine sample. I remember running into the bathroom, giving my urine sample, and my pee came out brown, the color of Coca-Cola. Right there, I've never in my life got so scared in my life, because I've done my research before, and I knew that brown urine was a no-no. That was bad. So I got so scared I threw her back in the toilet. I didn't want to give it to the doctor. And I told my wife that, and she said, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? Why'd you throw it in the toilet? I was too embarrassed to tell her what color it was. So I waited for the next urine test. It came out a little clearer, handed it to the doctor, and we still went on with the procedure for the gallbladder removal. They said it was going to be a small incision right above here. They said it was like a couple hours, maybe less than an hour. It would be quick. I never woke up from that surgery. I was in a coma for about a couple of weeks where I couldn't wake up, and they had to monitor my breathing, intubate me, because my breathing would go up, my heart rate would go up and down, and it was a scary moment for my family because they didn't know what was happening. It was a scary moment for my children. They didn't know if, what happened to daddy. Why wasn't he coming back home? Weeks went past. I just wouldn't wake up. The doctor had told my wife that I was going to die. That the doctor handed my father and my wife papers to take me off the life support machine, and my father and my wife refused to take me off. I don't remember any of this. The only thing that I do remember is my part, being in the coma, what I saw. And what I saw was completely different from what my family was seeing. My family saw me in my sleep, punching, screaming for help. But I wouldn't wake up. I wouldn't wake up. From what I remember, when I woke up, I told my family what I saw, and what I saw was completely different from what they saw. In my coma, I saw I was tied up. I was tied up to a bed, like a king-size bed. And when I looked over to my right, to my left, I saw a female, a very attractive female in red lingerie. And I asked her, and I said, well, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? And she was just as scared as I was. She was screaming, she was crying, she wanted out. She was tied up, I was tied up. We had no clue what we were doing in this. While this is going on, there was demons all around us, like black shadows, holding us back, holding us down. And I'm not sure if she was getting tortured, but I was getting tortured. These demons were putting metal wires running, like going inside my nose. And it was just like going, like nonstop wiring going through my nose. And I just remember screaming and screaming and screaming, asking for help. And so I finally said, God, please, Jesus, please help me, God. I can't do this no more. Please help me. I couldn't take the pain inside my nose, all the wiring just going in my nose. I don't know if that's because, I did drugs in the past. I don't know what kind of torture, why that was happening to me. But when I screamed Jesus, I looked up and I saw Jesus. I saw the devil. It was almost like he was trying to, like they were fighting for my life. They were fighting for my soul. And he had his demons there holding me back, like trying to wait for me to just die. I saw Jesus go head to head with the devil like this. My left hand is Jesus and the right hand is the devil. And they were just going head to head, pushing each other like that. And I saw the devil push Jesus like a little bit. And the devil, at that moment, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to stay in this black hole. I'm going to stay in this black room and I'm going to be here forever getting tortured. And I said, oh no, Jesus, please help me. Jesus, please get me out of here. Please don't lose. And then I just saw Jesus push him all the way back. I saw the devil go so far. And I didn't see, no longer did I see Jesus either. Jesus had just got rid of him and just pushed him. That's when the ropes for me had gotten loose. Let me backtrack before this, because I think I went a little too ahead. Before I saw Jesus, I did see, like, when I was asking for help and I was getting the wires getting through my nose, I remember, asking for my father to help me, and I would see this like screen that would open and shut, and I would see my father in Manhattan, just walking around on his phone crying, telling people about what was happening to me. And I would see the screen just shut and open, and I would be like, Dad, help me. But he wouldn't pay attention to me. And I would still get the wires running through my nose, getting tortured. Now, right after that is when I screamed help for Jesus. And that's when Jesus came and fought for me. And he saved me from the devil, from the enemy. And the ropes were released. Once the ropes were released, I was able to get up off the bed I was on. And I was wandering around this dark hospital in complete darkness. There was no light at all. I was running, just remember running down the hallway. And I found a door. I came across a door. And I opened the door. And when I opened the door, all I saw was a big screen. And it was the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. I saw the real crucifixion of Jesus Christ. I saw people throwing rocks at him, laughing, just like, ha ha ha, like, look at him, and just throwing rocks, kids just laughing, and everybody was just having a good time watching Jesus die for our sins. While I'm seeing all this, I'm watching people doing drugs in the city, Like that picture of the crucifixion went away, and then I just saw the New York City, people doing drugs, people killing, people raping, just so many bad stuff, people robbing, stealing. And at that moment, I was like, I gotta get out of this room. If I don't get out of this room, I'm gonna die here. The devil's trying to keep me here. So I ran out of that room, and I was running down the hallway again in complete darkness until I came across another room. When I pushed the door, I just saw complete brightness. It was just complete brightness, and I looked down, and when I looked down, I just saw his feet with holes in it. And right at that moment, I knew it was Jesus Christ. And then he like went like this with his hands to try to lift me up, and I saw the holes in his hands. I knew it was Jesus Christ, and he held me. He picked me up like a baby, as if I was like 2 years old. He just picked me up, held me like a baby, and there was no judgment. Because my whole life, I've been like, people have told me that people that get drunk, people that do drugs, you know, we're not in God's favorite at all because we're sinners. But there was no judgment there. He held me. He loved me. He told me he loved me. He didn't have any judgment. He didn't care what I did. He didn't care how many times I stole. He didn't care about how many times I was drunk or if I did drugs or if I sinned. He held me. He told me he loved me. He told me everything was going to be okay. And I just remember being mad and being upset and crying, holding him at the same time, but being upset. And telling him, like, well, why do you let so many bad things happen? Like, you know how many times I've prayed for you to help me, in a situation? Or you know how many times people pray? You know how many children are getting hurt? And we pray and we praise your name, and there's no answer. We go days and years throughout our lives and with no answer. And then he just said it. He just was like, that God doesn't answer everybody's prayer, that we need to have faith, that faith is the most important thing that we can have. Without faith, then there's nothing, because if he was to just answer everybody's prayer, then there would be no more faith. If he was just to grant everybody their prayers and their wishes, people would come to him for the wrong things. They would come to him for material things. They would come to him, oh, God, please, Jesus, please let me get a job. Let me get this. Let me get that. Let me get a new Lamborghini. Let me come across all these things that are really not important, when all he really wants to have is a relationship. A relationship, like a relationship that I have with anyone. So, and I just remember being upset. But then at that moment, when he told me that, I just remember going back to the bed where I was tied up. So I was back at the bed where I was tied up. But this time I was a lot stronger, because I remember God touching my hands. I was tied against the bed with these white gloves. And I just remember Jesus telling me that he has blessed my gloves. And at this time, I was able to brighten up a room with my gloves. Anywhere I brightened up with my glove, the darkness would just fall away and there would just be light everywhere. So on the outside, not in my coma, but what people were seeing in the hospital, what I was doing was going like this. They would report me just going like this, lighting up the room. But in my coma, I was seeing something else. I was lighting up the room. I was removing the demons from the room. I was removing the demons from the nurses that were attached. These demons were attaching themselves to the nurses. And I would just remove the demons from these nurses and try to save them. And I saved almost about 6 to 7 of them. And I remember not being able to save one lady. And I remember getting loose from the bed and running around with these ladies and having this black, glope of kind of like slime, black slime running after us, chasing us while we were running to the light, to the exit doors. We were trying to push the exit doors. and this slime was just coming underneath the exit doors. Every time, any door that we were able to get through, this slime was just trying to like follow us. Until we went to one door, and then I just saw light, and then that's when I woke up. I remember just waking up, and I was in the hospital, and I remember the nurse being there and just telling me, just saying, he woke up. And right away, she just told me, she's like, Louis, you're on life support. And she just told me right there that, she just told me everything, that I had cirrhosis and that I was going to die and that I didn't have so much time to live and that I might have like 4 months or 4 months to 3 months to live. That my liver was just done. It reached its limit and there was no saving me. And the doctor told my wife to sign the papers and to, just call it a day. And we all refused. And my father argued with the doctor and told him that, you're not going to let my son die. There's got to be something you can do. Something you can do. So at that time, the nurse said, listen, Louis, if you don't fight for your life right now, you're going to die. I'm going to pull the life support off of you. If you don't show the doctor right now that you're going to fight to breathe on your own, then they're going to let you die. So they pulled it off. I remember them pulling it off and me struggling and fighting for air, just trying to get my breath. And I just remember the doctor telling me, fine, there's only one chance. We only got one shot to save this kid, and that's sending him to Mount Sinai in Manhattan. And I remember like around 4 a.m. or 3 a.m, the EMS people came and they took me to Manhattan, and they drove like 90 miles per hour. They got me from Suffolk, Long Island, they got all the way to Manhattan. That's about an hour drive. They got me there in like 20 minutes or like half an hour. I was in Manhattan Hospital. While I was in Manhattan Hospital, I spent about 3 weeks there. They were trying to keep me, stabilized and everything. And I had people come in and out, trying to evaluate me and to see if I was going to be able to be on the list, on the donor list. That was the whole hope of getting me to that hospital, was to see if I can get a donor, someone to give me a liver, because my liver was no good and I had weeks to months to live. And I just remember these people coming and interviewing me and asking about my life and asking me how much did I drink and did I have a family, did I have children, did I want to live, was I suicidal? And I just remember telling them that I would do anything to live, that I wanted to live. I had 3 kids. I have 2 beautiful girls. I have an autistic son, and I just wanted to live. Usually they don't put an alcoholic on a list, on a donor's list. Somehow I made it. Somehow I made it on that list. They put me on the list. I just remember breaking down and crying. I remember the nurse coming to me and they told me, Luz, you made it on the list. You made it on the list. And I couldn't believe it. And right there, I broke down in tears and I gave all glory to God. And I said, thank you, God. Thank you for putting me on the list, because everybody told me that my chances were no good and that I was going to die. So I remember being there for another week. So now it's like almost about a month and a half that I'm at the hospital. So the doctor comes in and tells me that he has to send me home, that I'm good to go home, and that I would have to do rehab for 6 months. Meanwhile, I don't even have 6 months to live. But that's mandatory. Once you're on the donors list, you have to do a rehab. And So they sent me home that day. That day they sent me home, I remember walking outside in a wheelchair and then trying to walk my way to the parking garage where my wife had parked. I remember she was helping me walk. We were walking about a block away from the parking garage where I get a phone call. It's the hospital. And they call me, the doctor's calling me, and the doctor's, Louis, well, where are you? Where are you? And I'm like, what do you mean where I am? You just released me. You just told me to go home. You just released me from the hospital. And they're like, well, come back now because we got a liver. And I was like, what do you mean you got a liver? I just walked out of here. And they're like, Louis, stop asking questions. Just get back and we have a liver. And I was like, can I go home? Can I go home? And I want to see my children. I haven't seen my children in a month and a half. I didn't want them to see me like that, so I didn't allow them to. I was like, can I go home? And I remember them saying, yeah, you can go home, but come back first thing in the morning. And I went home. I said my goodbyes. I said my goodbyes to my wife. Not to my wife. I said my goodbyes to my children. I stopped by my aunt's house. I had a talk with them, and I told them my decision that I was going to go through the surgery. A lot of my family didn't want me to go through the surgery. They thought that I can beat it, but I explained to them a million times that I couldn't beat this. I had cirrhosis and I was done. There was no turning back from that. My liver wasn't able to repair itself at that point. My family, they didn't agree with my decision, but they backed me up on whatever my decision was going to be. I went home that night. I fell asleep. I woke up in the morning. And we headed to the hospital, me and my wife. We packed our clothes. We headed there. When I got to the hospital, the nurses got me all ready. They got me a bed. They changed me. They told me to wait. So at that point, we waited. We waited about 6 to 8 hours when the nurses came in and told me that my donor was... He was a young 18-year-old man who overdosed on fentanyl. And he was a vegetable. They told me that he was a vegetable and that he was on life support and that his family had came together and made the decision that they were going to pull the plug and that he was going to be my donor. At that moment, I felt bad. I'm like, he's 18. I'm 36. He's in the beginning of living his life. I already lived my life. I've done some stuff I regret. I felt bad, but he was going to be the donor. When they pulled the plug on him, he ended up living. He never died. He was supposed to die. He was supposed to be a vegetable, and he ended up living. I don't know what happened to him next, but all I know is that he lived. And they told me that basically to go home, to die. So it broke my heart. It broke my wife's heart. We were sad. We were upset. But I couldn't be upset. I couldn't be upset with the kid because he has so much to live for. He's younger than me. I was happy for him. I was happy that he lived. It was my loss, but it was his gain. And I prayed on that too. I prayed that he would have got better, and he did. And I'm grateful that he did. Anyway, they sent me home. We walked out that hospital, me and my wife, and we ran up a couple blocks and to a restaurant and have some breakfast. And I was just in bowl of tears, crying. And I knew my life was over. I knew that I took advantage of my body. I put it through so much, and and it was all my fault. As me and my wife went home, I accepted death. I knew that death was coming. It was at my door, and I accepted. I welcomed it. I wasn't scared anymore. I tried to repent every sin I've ever committed. I knew I was on my way. Wherever it might have been, hell or heaven, I was ready for it. That night I was watching cartoons with my wife and my 2 little children when I hear my phone ring, and it's the hospital, and they called me again the same day that they just released me, and they're like, Louis, where are you? And I'm like, what do you mean? You sent me home today. What are you talking about? And they're like, we have another liver. And I'm like, I just hung up the phone on them. I couldn't take it anymore. I could not take it anymore. The stress and the amount of emotions that my body was feeling, I was going crazy. I hung up on them. And I looked over to my wife, and I can just see the despair in her eyes. I could see the sadness. And I knew she couldn't take it no more. I knew she was done too. The emotions, she stuck by me for a month and a half. She never complained ever. And she just had this disappointment in her eyes. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, do whatever you want. And I said, what do you mean? She's like, no, I'm tired of you. You lost fight. You don't want to fight no more. You don't want to fight for your life anymore. You want to give up. You want to leave me and the children all by ourselves. And you just don't want to fight. You have no more fight in you. And I just remember feeling bad for that. And I sat alone by myself for a little bit, thinking to my thoughts. And I said, fine, you know what? I'm going to call the hospital. And I called them. And when I called them back, I told them, I said, this better be for real. Because I can't do this no more. I couldn't do it no more. We have a donor, we don't have a donor, the donor lived, the donor died. I just couldn't take the lies anymore. I already accepted death. I said, fine, I'm coming, I'm on my way. So I'm on my way to the hospital the very next morning at 10 o'clock in the morning. Me and my wife, we packed our bags and we're on our way back to Manhattan. Manhattan is not too far from us, about a 45-minute drive. So when we got there in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, same routine. Nurses got me ready. They got me a bed. I waited until the nurses came in with the doctor. And I remember this time it was a different doctor. The first time it was a female doctor. This time it was a male doctor, a young guy. He looked like about his late 30s to 40s, early 40s. And in my head, I'm like, who's this young guy going to do surgery on me? Little did I know that he was going to be the one to save mine. He explains to me that he was going to go on a helicopter on the rooftop. He said, Lou, I got a helicopter on top of the rooftop right now. I'm going to Boston. He said, I got a 46-year-old woman who passed away in Boston, and I'm gonna go there now, and they're keeping her organs alive. I think she was dead already, but they were keeping her organs alive. They were trying to salvage her heart, but they were gonna donate her other organs, but her heart was the main one, so they had the heart pumping. But he said, I'm going to go get the liver. If the liver is a perfect match for you, I will be back. If I'm back by 12 o'clock and the nurses get you prepped for anesthesia, know that I came back. If I didn't come back and it's past 12, know that it was a no-go, that liver just wasn't good for you. It wasn't meant for you. So I remember it being 12 o'clock. I remember the nurses leaving, him going. Then I looked over to my wife and I said, you know what? I'm going to drive myself crazy if I just sit here and wait. So I'm going to take a nap. And then I think she took a nap too. So when I took a nap, I just remember having a dream. I heard God's voice. And he told me, I just heard his voice say so strongly, haven't I told you not to worry? Haven't I told you not to be afraid? Haven't I told you everything will be okay? And then I woke up. I woke up and I looked over to my wife, and she was just, cuddled up with a blanket, and she's like, what's wrong? And I said, nothing is wrong. I said, I had a dream, and Jesus told me that everything was going to be okay. Right after I said that, like a minute after, nurses came through, rushed through the door, getting me ready for anesthesia. In that moment, I knew the doctor came back. So they just rushing me, getting me changed, putting new IVs, the whole 9 yards. I didn't even have really, not even 5 minutes to say goodbye to my wife. It was just 1, 2, 3. They were like, in and out. Let's go. Let's deliver. It was already there, and they don't have too much time. Surgery has to happen within an hour or two. So I said my goodbyes to my wife, and they wheeled me out of there. They brought me to an anesthesia place. They gave me, they held me down there for about 45 minutes until the doctor came in and told me not to worry. Once they brought me into the surgery room, I was nervous. But I wasn't scared. I had no fear at all. I had already put my problems in God's hands. I knew I was good. I heard my dream. I heard him say what he said, that I was going to be okay. I knew that was in his hands, and I completely trusted him and handed over. I had nothing else, nothing else to give or to say. It just happened like that. Surgery happened. I just remember the surgery took about 12 hours. My wife, they told her not to stay at the hospital because she was just going to, waste her time being there, worrying herself. She got an Airbnb in Manhattan and ended up just waiting for a phone call. When she got a phone call around 10:30 at night, that my surgery was around 12 o'clock. So she got that phone call about 10 hours later. And she thought that it was going to be a bad phone call. It ended up being a good one. So it ended up, they called her and they told her, he's good. He's in ICU and the recovery room, and he's recovering, and so far he's doing good. They did the transplant, and everything was looking good, and that she can come in the morning. Now, I want to pause and say something that a quote that somebody said to me one time, and I just never forget it. We won't know what God is willing to do for us until we're in a situation where only God can do it for us. God is the only one that could turn a bad situation into a beautiful situation without ever changing the situation. So everything that happened to me was bad, but it brought me closer to God. And it just brought in so much members of my family closer to God. I had my whole family praying for me. I had family in Guatemala praying for me. My mother went to Guatemala. She's from El Salvador, but she was traveling with her religious people that she hangs out with, and they were praying for me. Everybody was praying for me. I had people in different countries praying for me. And when I woke up that day, I just knew that the prayers of all these people worked. When I woke up out of that coma, I had a pastor from my church come and visit me that I've never even met before, praying for me. And it was unbelievable. It was just the miracles that have happened for me. It wasn't supposed to happen for me. I wasn't supposed to live. I wasn't supposed to be here today. It's been a year, almost a year. It'll be a year next month that I'm here. When I woke up from that surgery, I got to see the most beautiful woman come forward. That was my wife. I couldn't talk at the time. I had tubes stuck down my throat, all the way down my throat. I was trying to talk with a pen and write. I was in recovery ICU for about 2 weeks, and then I was in the hospital for another 2 weeks, and it was a lot. And I had to learn how to walk again. I had a scar, or they cut me from here to here. It's something that I'll never forget ever in my life. Not too many people will get this opportunity, not only to meet God, meet Jesus, But like I said, it was a bad situation that turned into a beautiful situation. I'm sober now. I don't drink anymore. And I feel like God does things his way because it has to be his way, because it could only be his way. It's his timing. My blood is blood O. I'm rare. That lady, my donor, is a blood O. For some reason, she's a perfect match. My doctor, after my surgery, he told me that it was like it was meant to be. Her liver was fit perfectly where my liver had to be. I felt bad that that somebody has to pass away, and until today, that haunts me every day. I feel like I don't deserve it. Every day I wake up in the morning, I think about it, and I give thanks to God, and then also I give thanks to the woman. So today I think about her family and their loss, but I want them to know that their loss still lives on. A little piece of that their family member still lives on within me, and I'm just grateful. Like I said, like it was a bad situation turned into a beautiful situation. And it's so funny because prior to this whole thing happening to me, in 2021, it's almost like I knew it was going to happen because I had a dream. I had a dream at 2 a.m. that God had came to me and told me that I was going to, me and my wife were going to go through something, and I was going to tell people my situation. And this happened in 2021, before my surgery, before everything that happened to me. I had that experience, and I didn't believe it. And I remember waking up and questioning God if that was real. And I remember going to the shower, and I just being so emotional and telling him if that was real, if that was really you, do it again. Like, and then I remember going back to sleep, and he came into my dream again. And this time I saw him playing basketball with a bunch of kids. And he told me that to go tell his children to come home, and that me and my father and my wife were going to bring as many children as we can to this kind of like foster home building. I'm kind of handy with my hands, and he told me, I want you to restore this building and tell everybody about me and his gospel and everything. And I woke up and I told my wife, and she didn't believe me at the time. But 3 years later, this situation happened to me, brought me closer to God. And now maybe I'm able to tell my testimony and tell people that he's real, and that if you put your faith in him, all your problems and everything, then he will take care of us. Because God won't put you to, but he won't walk you through. And I believe in that with all my heart. And I'm glad to be here. And I give thanks to everybody who's listening, and especially my donor. And I'm sure she's in heaven playing basketball, shooting hoops with Jesus like I saw him. I give all the glory to God for letting me live. I don't know my purpose yet. I'm still trying to figure that out. It's a miracle I'm on this show. Thank you for taking your time to reading my post. But
man, it's no accident, Louis, that you're on the show. And as you're sharing this, Jesus wants you to share your testimony. And I just got off the phone with the lady. Her name was Diane, or is Diane. And she was sharing with me that she also had a near-death experience. But she told me that, how you said your family was praying for you. All these people are praying for you. And she said that she saw when she was in heaven, Jesus showed her this thing. I forget, it looked like the little tickets. I forget how she described, but there were the prayers of people, strangers that were praying all over the world for her. And she saw those prayers that were going forth for her. And that's amazing. When people pray, we just think that we're just making noises, right? When we're just saying random things, we're saying good things. But man, there's something about the power of prayer. I don't take it for granted. And, it's a huge honor for me to share these testimonies, because she said that Jesus told her to share her story. And it's interesting that he connected you with me. He connected her with me. And it's like, As you're sharing this, man, I have this like fear of God, like, man, that's so cool that I get to share these testimonies with the world. Like that to me, like I have chills right now, just thinking about that. Somehow, I feel like I'm not worthy to do any of this, but somehow he chose me to do this. Like to me, that's just like, man, almost brings tears to my eyes. But let's back it up. Back to your story before I start crying. Back to your story. It's interesting that it started with you being tied up to a bed and with another person, red dress. What do you make of that? Who do you think that was?
I think it had to do with the enemy just trying to make me comfortable already, or so I can lust, because I've lusted back in my life before. You're in his place, so he's gonna play around and mess with your mind. I mean,
so it's a setup.
Yeah, why not put a beautiful girl next to you and make you feel comfortable, make you want to stay there? Like, why not just die here? Well, next to a beautiful, gorgeous woman in red lingerie. And
wow,
I just knew I was getting set up. And the nurses, they were demonized nurses, just trying to hold me back and just hold me and trying to keep me there. And there was like this something, a door or a gate will open, a window would open and shut, and I would just see my family members there, and I would just like try to reach them and get me out of here. While that's going on, I'm in my sleep, but my physical body is fighting. So that the hospital, when I woke up, they had put gloves on me because I had punched a couple nurses because they said that I was going crazy. But I remember fighting demons. I remember fighting with these demons that were being so mean to me. They would like grab my face and punching me.
And you felt the pain when they were grabbing your face, right?
Yeah.
It was real.
It felt real,
What about, let's back it up even before that experience, the drinking. What was the source of all that pain? Why did you continue to drink?
It had to do a lot with with a breakup that I had with the mother of my child. When we separated, I fought a lot to be a part of my daughter's life. She's 18 years old now, and I'm very proud of her. She goes to Indiana University. But her whole life, when she was young, I don't think she knows and realizes how much I had to fight, how many times I had to go to court. And there was a lot of sadness being there was so many birthdays I had to miss, so many Christmases I didn't get a chance to be part of. So drinking kind of helped me cope with all that depression that I was going through.
So it was the guilt, the shame, the condemnation that drove you to drinking, right?
Yeah, her mother tried her hardest for me not to be part of her life. So every day I was just sad, just sad, missing my daughter. She was so little. And and then once my daughter turned old enough at 14 years old, she came to live with me. She got tired of her mother. But even then, I had my wife, my new wife. I have 2 children with her. I had my other daughter that from my first relationship living with me. I was still happy, but I was still drinking.
At that point, it was just a habit, right?
Yeah, it's just a bad habit that it attaches itself, and once it's attached, it's hard to let go.
Was it easy to kick the habit afterwards? Do you feel like God delivered you from it 100%?
No, because I remember going to the hospital after my surgery. I had to go like twice a week. And I remember crying, going to the hospital. I felt like my life was over because the drink was no longer there. I'm like, I couldn't see life being good without a drink because I was intoxicated. Every Christmas, every holiday, every party, I was like, how am I gonna enjoy these things now without the drink? Little did I know that being sober, you get to see things different from a different perspective. Now I get to enjoy my children a lot better than I was intoxicated. then everything I see is more beautiful now. Everything that I experience with my children, with my family, with my wife. If I go outside, I look at the trees. I'm like, everything is completely different when you're sober. At first, it was hard. I felt like my youth was taken away because I was only 36 at the time. I'm 37 now. I felt like, like my youth got taken away. But like I said, like a bad situation turns into a great situation without ever changing a situation. So I don't drink anymore, but I can enjoy a good time, even with people drinking around me. It doesn't affect me at all. I don't. Do I get the urge once in a while? Yeah, I'm normal. I'm human, but I'm good. I'm good being sober. I'm good. I value my life way more than the drink. You know what I'm saying?
Luis, do you feel like this experience was necessary for you?
Yeah, because I couldn't do it on my own. I tried to do it on my own. Many times I went a week without drinking. Many times I tried to stop drinking. And, it had to happen God's way because it couldn't do it my way. I couldn't do it my way. If I would have went to rehab, I would have relapsed. It had to happen God's way. And I remember having going to a doctor appointment and asking my doctor, would I ever be able to drink again? And the doctor telling me with a serious face, are you serious, Luis? Do you know how many people died and they didn't get a liver and you did? You know how many people died? And that broke me. That set me straight. And I was like, wow. Like some people died and didn't get that liver, and I got that liver. I didn't deserve that liver. That's why I question myself.
Sometimes you have to go through some hardships to really appreciate what you have, right?
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that we have to sometimes wait until we hit rock bottom until we lose something to really appreciate it, right? And so for everybody watching, let that sink in, learn from Luis's mistakes, right? But most importantly, your relationship with Jesus, though, how much better is it now?
A lot better. I feel connected. Before I felt separated. Like I would reach out, I would pray, I would get nothing. I felt like he was there, but he wasn't really there. He wasn't listening to me. Now I feel like he's around me all the time, protecting me. And I know there's something I'm supposed to do. I just don't know what it is yet.
Well, I know exactly what it is. You being on this show is the first step.
Yeah.
I'm curious, speaking of sharing your testimony and like your family, for example, the doctor, your daughter, how are they taking this testimony? Did you share it with them?
They think it's beautiful. I don't think it's beautiful. That's beautiful. They think it's beautiful. They think that my testimony is beautiful. They seen me progress. When I came out before the hospital, I was 200 pounds, 211 pounds. When I came out the hospital, I was 140. So, and I'm the type of person that I'm a fighter and I'm going to fight to get back, so they saw me struggle and baby steps to get back to where I am right now. The doctor didn't want me to go back to work. I went back to work after 4 or 5 months. They wanted me to wait 7, 8 months to go back to work. They wanted me not to exercise. I was doing push-ups. I wasn't supposed to be doing push-ups, but I just refused to go down, and I just kind of picked myself up, and they saw that, and I think they were the kind of. My wife tells me all the time, she's like, "You're an inspiration because you hit rock bottom, you hit the bottomness of the pit, and you were you were looking at death, and then to where I am right now, I'm working, I'm healthy, I'm working out, I'm stronger, my faith is stronger with God, and I don't take no for an answer. I'll keep going and striving for better, and just, I know I had to put all my trust in God now. That was my problem before. Is that we're too busy trying to take care of everything. When we should all we got to do is just give our problems to God. Because He got our back. We might not know it, but He does.
Man, I needed to hear that. And I'm curious, did you share this story with your doctor?
Yeah.
How did he take it?
He was amazed. He's like, really? You went through all that? And I was like, yeah.
Is he a believer?
He is. He is. He even got inspired. And he was like, oh man, I can't wait to go home and tell my family. I'm not sure if he's Catholic or a Christian, but I know he believes in God. He told me that he believes in Jesus. And he couldn't believe that he was part of my surgery, because I told him that everything that I told you, I told him.
Wow. You know, there's something else you were talking about earlier during your experience, those gloves. It's interesting that, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jesus gave you those gloves to put on, right, to fight?
No, I don't know if I was imagining it or what, but I did have gloves on my physical body. But when I was in that black hole, I had these gloves. Mm-hmm. But they weren't gloves. They were like wrapped around white cloths. And when I was with him, he had touched me, my hands, and he had like kind of like mentioned it. Like through my head, I understood him. Like, I got power in my hands now. Now I can brighten the room up so that these demons, every time I went like that and brightened up the ceiling, the demons couldn't stand the light, and they would separate themselves from the room, from the nurses or whatever. And while I was doing that, my family's watching me. They don't know what I'm doing. I'm in a deep sleep, but I see everything a different perspective.
Interesting. I wonder if it's almost like you were activated. Your hands were activated, right? Have you tried maybe laying hands on the people afterwards?
No.
For them or something like that? That's kind of cool. It's like you got this power in your hands now.
I feel stronger. I don't know. Maybe.
No, what an experience. What do you make of all this whole experience? Like, you had some time to think about it all. I'm sure you probably some days wake up like, did it really happen? Do you ever question any of this?
It feels like a dream. Like, I have to remind myself that that this happened to me. That, you know, when I take off my shirt and I see my scars, I'm reminded every day. I'm reminded every single day of my scars. I just look at myself like a warrior now, because sometimes you gotta hit rock bottom, like you said, and you can't give up. You gotta, with faith, you can be strong again. You know,
Louis, as you were sharing your story, because lately, like, you know, I started this channel a little less than 3 months ago, and it's just taken off all this, and I feel this pressure of like, who do I bring on next? And in my dream, I had a face-to-face conversation with Jesus 9 years ago. Kind of like you, it was telepathic. Like, it was more like in the dream, but it was one of those things that I was like in the dream, but then there was in the dream within the dream, but then that dream within the dream, it felt like I was in a totally different realm. Like I was able to move my hands. I was able to see, smell, touch. I mean, it was supernatural. And I had a face-to-face conversation with Jesus. And in that dream, Jesus told me about this podcast, that he was going to help me. He literally told me, don't worry, I will help you. And I still doubt it sometimes. Like, okay, who do I bring on next? What do I do next? Like, oh, this pressure, right? And as you're sharing this, like, Jesus told you, don't worry, I got you, right? Just trust me. And so how easy it is for all of us to go in and out of faith. I had a dream. I had like a face-to-face conversation with Jesus. Everything he told me came to pass. Like, this podcast is blowing up. Like, everything he told me in 9 years, he was preparing me. He was opening these supernatural doors. 9 years was like a supernatural journey. And even then, still sometimes doubt him. And your story kind of reminded me back of the promise that he made to me. It's like, Vlad, don't worry, I got you. And that's my big takeaway. And so for people watching right now, let's say there's somebody who's watching, the old Louis who's drinking, but somehow they stumble on this video, they're watching this video and they're hearing your testimony. What would you say to your older self watching right now?
My old self? Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't fall in despair. You know, there's always hope. There's always an outlet. There's always, every bad situation can be, you know, better with God only, with Jesus only. But you have to be willing to give it to him, because if you don't give it to him, you try to be Superman, you try to do it by yourself, you're not gonna go nowhere. You know, this podcast, I've sent my testimony to other people, but it brought me to you. It's God's will. I pray every day, let your will be done, not mine. So if I'm on this podcast, because it's God's will, and the same thing in the everyday life, you can't try to control what's going to happen next. You just got to give it to God.
And you got to be faithful in little, and more will be added to you. Because, the more I think about myself, who I am, I'm well aware of my shortcomings, who I am. I stumble all the time. And sometimes it's hard to believe that God would trust me with your testimony or other people's testimonies, because I'm so human. Like, man, I still got a lot of growing, maturing to do. But God is not waiting for a perfect vessel, right? He's waiting for a yielding vessel, right? For somebody who's willing to take a chance. And so, for people watching, that's my encouragement to you. Just what's that first step you can take? Take it. And then God will reveal the second step. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just be faithful in little, and more will be added to you. So in closing, Louis, somebody watching again, what's something practical? Like, they're struggling with their relationship with Jesus. Because, man, there's so many theories, so many things that we can do. What's first step? What's one thing they can do, like a practical step to get closer to Jesus?
Wake up in the morning, and talk with him. God doesn't want perfect people. Like you said, he doesn't want perfect people. He wants the damaged ones. The perfect people, he might leave them alone. He wants people that are damaged. He wants to hear about your problems. He wants you to wake up in the morning, take that drive to work or walk or on the train, if you got time on the train, and talk to him. Talk to him about your problems. Talk to him about your ups and downs. Talk to him about good things. Make him laugh. Tell a joke to him. I tell God jokes all the time. I don't think I'm too funny, but he doesn't want perfect people. I tell my mom that all the time. Sometimes my mom, she's very faithful in the church. And I tell her that God doesn't want perfect people. You told me that I was going to go to hell because I was a sinner, because I was a drunk, or I drank a lot, or I stole, or I've got into a lot of fights. He don't want perfect people. He wants people. He wants all people, but he wants damaged people to come to him. That's why I think that's why he showed himself to me as an example to other people who might have gone through or is going through what I was.
I like how you said, Louis, earlier. You said, I wrote it down, without faith, there's nothing. I think that's a good one to end on. You got to take it by faith.
Yeah, he said that. He said faith is more important than anything, because without faith, there is no prayer. You can pray all you want, but if you don't really have faith in it, that's why I think he said that, it's very important to have faith.
I love that saying, faith it until you make it. Not fake it until you make it. Faith it until you make it. Take the first step. Even if you don't believe it, just take the first step. Whatever it is, make that uncomfortable phone call, send that uncomfortable text message, forgive that person, whatever that first step is. Take it. And most of us know what that step is. We just, we don't want to do it. We don't want to take it. It's uncomfortable.
Yes.
But there's freedom on the other side of uncomfortable. So, well, Louis, you've been so generous with your time. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you too.
This was an awesome conversation. It's going to bless a lot of people.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for watching. Before you go, I have another powerful near-death experience for you with my friend Keisha, who was a witch about to marry Satan himself, until she had a near-death experience where Jesus showed her where witches go in hell. So you don't want to miss this powerful testimony. It should be coming up here on the screen somewhere. If you don't see it on the screen, check the description below. Until next time, have a great rest of the day, and I look forward to getting to know you inside of our free private community over at family.godsvoicetoday.com. Talk soon. Bye-bye.